But there wasn't a time in the United States when facial hair in presidents and high office holders was very common. What are some good examples of that, and when do you think that changed and why?
Well, the heyday was President Lincoln was the first to grow a beard, the first president, and famously a small girl suggested it to him after he won the candidacy, after he became president. So he actually didn't wear a beard as candidate, but he did as president. He was a little bit behind the trends. Beards had become quite fashionable in the 1850s and remained fashionable up until about the 1880s, and then fell out of fashion, but mustaches remained quite fashionable up until the beginning of the 20th century. So you can say from the last half of the 19th century was an age of facial hair. And what I've suggested, will suggest in my book forthcoming, is that what happened in that time was, well, you could almost say a kind of a crisis of masculinity. Great changes going on when you think about it, both in social and in economic environment for men. That advent of real democracy and mass society and labor unions and all that kind of thing, plus the women's movement and women's equality. So men were struggling to assert their place in society, both as individuals, if you're a working class man, and as men vis-a-vis women in that circumstance. And it worked for them to grow beards, and there was a lot of discussion all over Europe and America about how great beards were. They were a natural symbol of male virtues and qualities that made them distinctive and, frankly, in their minds, superior to women, and it bolstered their social position and their psychological position in times of great change. I argue then what happens in the 20th century is that the way in which masculinity is worked out is it changes. One of the changes that you might see right away is the advent of the bodybuilding culture at the very end of the 19th century put new emphasis on muscles as the kind of the physical representation of manhood, as opposed to hair. In fact, muscles and hair are in kind of conflict with each other. You shave, Arnold Schwarzenegger is shaved from head to toe to accentuate muscle. And that, to some extent, replaced the need to display hair to show masculinity.
That's interesting. So I believe I noticed in sort of when I first hunted you down on the internet, did you used to have a beard yourself?
Yeah, well, for that previous interview, I sent along a picture of myself with a beard. I've had beards on and off through my life. So I have an ironic distance to my subject, I guess, or some sort of existential distinction from my subject. I don't pursue this subject for personal reasons. I pursue it as a historical interest, although I can claim to have some experience in the matter.
Is there something about your research that convinced you to shave?
No. I've spent most of my adult life shaved, although I've had experiments with facial hair. I don't want to drag my wife into this, but she's a very tolerant person, and when I ask her, she says, "Yeah, you can have it," which I understand what that means.
Yeah.
Women have a lot to say on these matters.
That's true, and that sort of relates back to Dewey's decision as well.
Absolutely.
I actually sort of grew out a temporary beard preparing for this interview, but I think it'll be kaput shortly after.
Looks good.
And hopefully you're not drawing too many conclusions about my character from. I promise I don't have anything to hide.
That's right. Yeah, that's an accusation against bearded men. They're trying to hide something. That's right. Women especially say that.
Do you think there are any prospects for a comeback for the political beard, the political mustache?
Well, I tell you that has been prophesied just about every 20 years. Someone will come out with an article saying beards are back, mustaches are back. Can you believe it? In the 1960s, they were writing that one of the least likely times that it was ever going to happen. So people see maybe a group of people experimenting with some facial hair, and they say, "Oh, here we go," and it never quite happens. Funny thing is, this is one of the curious discoveries that I made, is that if you look at the history of Western civilization all the way going back to Alexander the Great, the default mode for facial hair is shaved, and it takes a confluence of factors working simultaneously to create a condition which moves men in general towards facial hair. And the exact reason for that dynamic is, I'm still working on that, but that is the fact. And so I'm always hesitant. I would be very hesitant to declare a comeback, because it's going to require several things to work simultaneously to make it happen. But I do notice, on the other hand, much more facial hair in the last 10 years. No question about it. But the countervailing forces are also powerful. I think the key will be, when you see businessmen, lawyers, and that kind of men, and soldiers and government officials, politicians, all those groups have in common that they need to play in a team. They need to impress a large number of people. They need to look clean and trustworthy and reliable, sociable. And when you see a trend in that group, then I'll be ready to call the election, as it were. But if you see professors and pastors wearing beards, that's not it. They can wear beards because they are relatively more independent. I guess pastors need to please people, which is why most pastors don't have beards. But they also they want to project their independence and authority too, and so many times that works for them, especially if they're older. Age makes a difference. If you're older, there is more tolerance for a beard than if you're younger. Gray beard means something quite different from a black beard or a red beard. So professors and those kinds of things. And another thing, you do see judges. Judges will sometimes wear beards. Again, that works because they're independent. They're the decision makers. They're not appearing before other judges. They are in charge of their courtroom. Now, the lawyers who come into the courtroom and appear before their judges will never be bearded.
I don't know if you caught the Wall Street Journal actually had an article not about McAdams and Joe Miller, but in fact about John Bolton and his presidential aspirations. John Bolton of the very wide, very distinguished mustache, the former UN ambassador. Was he the one that Bush appointed? Yep, he's the Bush appointee. To the UN? Yeah. Okay. He looks like he has a, small animal underneath his nose.
He's an academic. He has academic credentials and tendencies. So I think that fits that. He's also, when you hear him speak, if I remember correct, he's quite aggressive. He has very aggressive words. His famous 20 UN don't count. We can get rid of them. He was very confrontational with the senators during his confirmation hearings. So I'm going to say that that's confirmation of the stereotypical connection between, sort of assertive, independent, aggressive masculinity and the display of facial hair.
So you think John Bolton might have a little trouble with the woman vote?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely, no chance.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the Alaska Senate race where we have these two men with facial hair also happens to be a three-way race where the third candidate is a woman. Considering what we've talked about.
Well, either Miller and
Miller, McAdams, Murkowski.
Murkowski. Either Miller or McCaskey will split the Republican vote, or McAdams and Miller will split the masculine vote. I don't know which will be more important in the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it's just, maybe their faces are just cold. It is very cold in Alaska.
Yeah, that's the theory anyway. When you look at the evolution of beards and look at all the evidence that you can have, there really isn't much to suggest that facial hair has anything to do with heat or weather. It seems to have everything to do, at least as far as the evolutionary biologists are concerned, everything to do with display. Like ruffs and feathers on birds. A lot of those birds with those colorful feathers, they don't use those for flying. They're not functional feathers. In that sense, they're for display, and so it's pretty clear that the hair on the face doesn't have any real function, just like the colored feathers. It has the purpose of display. Women don't need facial hair. If facial hair were actually beneficial to the human body, then women would have it too. But at least that seems logical to me.
It's signaling.
Yeah, it's signaling, absolutely. And almost all evolutionary biologists would agree that in some sense it's a kind of a signal. And they argue about what kind of signal, to whom. Is it a signal to women? Is it a signal to other men? If it's to other men, it's sort of a signal, I'm tough, stay away, back off. If it's a signal to women, it's saying, I'm tough, come on. I'm the kind of guy you want. I'm mature and strong. And maybe it works both ways.
Maybe. I guess we'll see in November. We'll know for sure. We'll know all these answers come election day.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to break down the election when it happens.
Yeah, I look forward to that. We'll have the full beard analysis, and maybe one day we can get back together and
sure.
and talk about Henry Waxman's mustache.
Well, there you
Washington
go. Yeah,
favorite.
I think they get away with it at the congressional level. We didn't get a chance to test Al Gore's beard. He didn't last long enough with that beard to. Then it was after he lost. So.
Yeah. The rebound beard seems to be a fixture for certain politicians.
I thought it looked good on him, but people objected. I haven't looked at all the discussion of that, and I haven't studied it, but I'm fully expecting that it met disapproval, particularly with women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it remains to be seen. We'll have to go to the record.
That's right. That'll happen. Yeah. I'll have that in the book.
All right. Well, we look forward to it. Thanks for talking to me, and good luck with the book and the paper, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks. Good to talk to you.
Bye.